Hate-filled slayings at the Jewish Community Center and Village Shalom thrust our metro into the international news spotlight. Plus, breathing a sigh of relief on metro highways. Police say they've captured the highway shooter. Also this half hour, from concept to reality, the first truckloads of streetcar rail arrive. Meanwhile, in the Northland, a fixture for nearly 40 years shutters its doors. And Sebelius, from health secretary to Kansas senator. Welcome everyone, I'm Nick Haynes, and thank you for joining us again as we connect the dots on the most important news stories on both sides of state line. Dissecting those stories this week, from NBC Action News, Garrett Haake, Kansas City Star political columnist and the host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske, Star development reporter Kevin Collison, and investigative journalist Stacey Cameron. Kansas City was making world news this week, but all for the wrong reasons, as a white supremacist shot to death 3 people outside 2 Jewish facilities in southern Overland Park. Federal prosecutors say they intend to file hate crime charges against 73-year-old Frazier Glenn Cross, a.k.a. Glenn Miller, who is accused of gunning down his victims outside the Jewish Community Center and Village Shalom.
There's a guy with a rifle here shooting at people.
I would leave.
Is he still here?
I don't know.
4 or 5 shots have been fired into the front door. There's a male with a shotgun.
I knew as soon as I came upon my dad that he was in heaven.
They literally had just pulled into a parking place, and I opened the doors to get out. They were ambushed.
We got 2 down. That's all we're aware of this time.
Investigators say Cross didn't stop there. He then drove to a nearby Jewish assisted living facility and shot and killed Terry Lamano, who was visiting her mother.
This morning, our prayers are with the people of Overland Park.
Our dad and my son were at the wrong place at the wrong time for a split second.
That idiot absolutely knocked a family to its knees for no reason.
Innocent people were killed. Their families were devastated. And this violence has struck at the heart of the Jewish community in Kansas City.
We have unquestionably determined through the work of local and federal law enforcement agencies that this was a hate crime.
We are aware of his existence. We are aware that he was affiliated with certain hate groups.
Heal those whose minds have been blinded by bigotry, whose hearts have been haunted by hatred, whose souls have been perverted by prejudice.
We want something good to come out of this. We don't know what that's going to be.
Although our hearts are truly broken, all Americans stand with the people of Overland Park, of Leawood, and of Kansas City. We are united in our condemnation of this heinous attack and in our commitment to see that justice is served.
In circumstances like these, we're often left wondering who was the perpetrator. The gunman, though, just didn't appear out of nowhere. He was a U.S. Senate candidate, for instance, in Missouri. He ran radio ads espousing his views. This was a known quantity to many people, Steve Kraske.
He was a known quantity. Lots of media stations here in the Midwest, Nick, dealing with this question of did they have to run these very racist advertising that he put up a couple of years ago or not? And eventually, a lot of stations concluded they didn't have to do it. The FCC sort of allowed them to back away from those prior commitments, and a lot of those ads were taken down during that campaign.
You know, again, when we say when things like this happen, Garrett Haake, we're often said, who was this person? There was a story on Channel 41, your own station, that there was a meeting at the Jewish Community Center where there was a forum on hate groups. And Glenn Miller was part of that conversation, and they were even quoting from his book at that, talking about the dangers of those hate groups.
His name came up. He's been a known quantity for almost 30 years. He started this White Patriot Party in North Carolina in the late 70s, early 80s. He's been around for a long time. And so his literature and his views have been sort of on the forefront of this white supremacist militia movement. He had almost a paramilitary movement in North Carolina when he first got started. One of the interesting things I think we have yet to find out about this guy, when you talk to the folks who study these hate groups, this kind of speech is very common. What you rarely see is people who turn the corner from the speech to the action. And for someone who's been so outspoken for 30 years, to suddenly turn the page and go for that violent action, we don't yet know what that triggering event was, and that's going to be one of the interesting things to still come out in this investigation.
Another part of all of this is, you could have had metal detectors, you could have had every single security measure possible at the Jewish Community Center at Village Shalom. It would never have mattered, Stacey Cameron. All of this was happening in the parking lot in a very random way.
That's exactly right, Nick, and I think that just highlights the world that we live in today, regardless of the steps that you may take for safety and precaution. Sometimes it's just not enough. You mentioned there were security guards, there were cameras, but because it happened in the parking lot outside of these areas that had taken great precaution, there was nothing that could have been done, at least at that point, to prevent this.
A lot of the focus has been in the reporting here about, or should this be prosecuted as a hate crime? Why all of the focus on this? I mean, a capital crime is available in the state of Kansas. Certainly murder is not an act of love. I mean, this is a major act of hate. Won't this actually prolong this whole case when charges of a hate crime are filed?
Well, it really should, Nick, because all it does is give one more card to the prosecutor to possibly plead this out and not have to go to trial. It may give Mr. Miller, and I hesitate to call him Mr. at all, this criminal, this horrible person, it gives his defense attorney maybe one card to take off the death penalty, to plea out to life in prison and get this over. But I can't imagine that this individual, with all of his history and background, is going to plead out. I think he's going to want to go to court. I think he's going to want to make a spectacle. But you would hope that the prosecutors here somehow have some ability to silence him. But I don't see it, because the hate crime, all the elements for the hate crime are going to be the same elements, for the most part, proven in the capital murder case. So this shouldn't slow it down. What it really is in charging with a hate crime is sending a message to other people that they commit these kinds of acts of bigotry, racism, and hate, that they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
There is a powerful value in making that hate crime charge, Stacey, to your last point there, this idea that you send a message. But it highlights an important question for the folks who do what we do around this table, which is, how do you cover someone like this? Do you by covering that trial, do you give voice to these people's views? We had a robust discussion over how do we cover the different hate groups and the hate speech associated with even this particular incident. There's arguments to be made on both sides that you have to shine a light on these groups, but how do you do that without seeming to promote or give voice to their views? It's an interesting problem that I think all of us are going to face if this goes to trial.
My sense, the media has been pretty good about not offering too much promotional advantage to this guy going forward. Nick, one thing that strikes me about a moment like this in our community is just how effectively, and maybe just how magnificently, really, people came together. Southern Johnson County, the Jewish Community Center and its community, really the state of Kansas, state of Missouri, people really rallying to the cause in the face of such great difficulty here. It's always impressive to me how people rally and attempt to go forward after something like this.
Is a serial highway shooter's reign of terror over? In another story that's been bringing national news attention to the metro, Kansas City police say they finally caught the man who's been shooting at drivers on highways from Leawood to Blue Springs. Garrett, after all this time, what drove police to this suspect?
Well, police aren't saying, in fact, they're going out of their way to say there was no silver bullet, there was no one single thing that brought them to this particular suspect, but they do believe they have their man. Chief Forte last night said he thinks the highways are safe tonight, without going so far as to say this is their only
But when I drove
suspect.
in this morning, all of those police cars we've seen every single day on the highways were not there, so I think they are feeling confident.
They are very confident, and I will tell you one enormous piece of evidence was towed off the suspect's backyard yesterday, and that was this dark green Dodge sedan that was mentioned in several of these police reports as possibly connected. I'm told by witnesses who were there for the arrest that as soon as this man was taken down, police went immediately to that car to secure evidence. That seems to be one of the key pieces so far.
Stacey.
Well, but it raises the question, if this is the shooter, and by all intent it seems that he is, what about Monday's murder on I-70 in Kansas City, Kansas? You saw this gentleman was not a very good shot, thankfully. Injured a couple people, didn't kill anybody, but we had someone on I-70 in Kansas City, Kansas shot and killed. And so you wonder, is that a copycat crime? Is there another motive there? There's still some concerns about, you know, this case, all the tight bows of all these shootings, 20 some odd shootings, this guy only connected to 12 or 13. There's still something going on out there. I don't think we have another serial shooter, but we do have other issues that police still need to tie up.
We've rarely ever talked about crime on this show, and I have to say in the last few weeks it has been a concentration of crime. We brought Kevin Collison on this program because we wanted to talk a lot about economic development issues, but it's been taking over the show for the last few weeks, which has been bringing a reputation to this metropolitan area.
You know, we have talked about this. I mean, you know, usually we've talked about it in the conjunction with the horrible homicide rate in the city of Kansas City, which is of course a very different stripe, but still gives this area a terrible reputation. I think, you know, as Steve pointed out, the kind of random horror that happened in southern Johnson County, unfortunately in the United States of America, we just made the news cycle for maybe this week or the next week. Sadly, there's going to be another one in another part of the country.
Yeah.
But I do think that we showed the nation what a strong community we are. And the mother of the boy was just one of the most powerful, strong people. You know, and I think her video was all over the country as well, and it shows you the strength of this community. But crime, certainly, but the crime that I think really harms our reputation is unfortunately the garden variety that we see on the streets of our city.
You know, I agree with that. I mean, does this impact the city's ability to attract the 2016 Republican National Convention here? I think the answer is no, just for the reasons Kevin outlined. This is big news today. 2 weeks from now, it's not. The crime moves somewhere else.
Yeah, nobody's holding the Aurora movie theater shooter against Denver, against Colorado. I mean, these kind of events, as abhorrent as they are, tend to be one-offs. But to Stacey, again, to your point, now that we've sort of if we're putting the highway shooter behind us, we're all of a sudden right back to where we were 2 weeks ago, which is the violent crime problem that's existed in this city all along didn't go away during this time. It's still here, and it'll continue to be here.
Well, there was lots of other news happening this week. The first set of Kansas City streetcar rails arrived. The first shipment of steel rail for the city's downtown streetcar line was trucked in Wednesday morning. 139,000 pounds of steel unloaded off of 3 trucks from a mill in Steelton, Pennsylvania. Back in October, streetcar backers were celebrating the first development project directly tied to the 2-mile streetcar line. A Boulder-based developer saying they were seduced by the economic potential of streetcars to draw up plans for a 50-unit apartment building directly along the route. 6 months on, with the rail now being laid, is there any other new development that can be directly attributed to the streetcar line, Kevin?
It's funny you bring that up, Steve. Yesterday, the Planned Industrial Expansion Authority approved tax incentives for a 56-unit apartment building that's going to go up in the River Market right on the streetcar route.
Directly because of streetcars, though?
They certainly attribute it to it. But the big story, you know, again, I don't think I've heard much this much hyperbole since the Transcontinental Railroad got built back in the 60s.
Okay.
It's a wonderful asset, but every developer I talk to say this is not a substitute for the car. I think really, you know, it's certainly encouraging development. It's not changing very much at all the amount of parking these developers provide. It's really so much more about the psychology of it. I really do think the more I've listened to people tweet about it, the more excitement that, you know, every rail there's a Twitter photo. It's more the buzz that the younger folks, the younger adults that see what's going on in Denver and Minneapolis and other progressive cities, we're finally getting rail transit. Now that, to a pragmatist, might be a pretty flimsy reason to invest it, but psychologically, it's a big part of our community trying to remain a relevant, progressive place for those young adults people want to come here.
Garrett.
That's been my question about this all along, is how can Kansas City change culturally to make this more valuable here? I mean, I lived in New York City for years. To live near the subway was a big deal, not just because it made your commute shorter, but that the development existed along that. It's baked into the culture. And if Kansas City can, I don't think it'll ever get to that point, but if Kansas City can get around the idea of the rail as being part of a culture, particularly for young people, that could be a huge determinant in how successful this project is.
Steve, we need to keep this in context, though, a little bit. We have, what, a couple miles of track being laid right now from River Market to Crown Center. We're going to find out this year now, with a couple of elections, whether rail is going to be extended out to the UMKC campus and then east along Independence Avenue and elsewhere. Those decisions are still outstanding. We don't quite know where that's going to go. I just heard Mayor Sly James talk just the other day. He's saying that if these votes don't pass this year, we're not going back to this issue perhaps for a couple more years to come after this, and it would really put this whole project off for a long time to come.
And I am a bit concerned. I mean, what the financial mechanism created for the downtown streetcar was a pretty politically expedient exercise. They only had to get a couple of hundred people living downtown to vote for this. I was a bit surprised that they're going to base the extensions on the same model, because we're talking about a 1-cent sales tax increase and a property tax increase for people who live on 1/3 of a mile. And as we just found out the other day, when the state of Missouri passed legislation that could maybe have another ballot issue for a cent sales tax increase for transportation, we're getting just killed by these sales taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we could foreseeably see a 12-cent sales tax here if both the streetcar thing and the Missouri transportation thing went through in some neighborhoods of our city. And I just find that to be a really tough sell to people. I really do.
It's been a Northland fixture for nearly 40 years, and on Tuesday it officially shut its doors. When it opened in 1976, Metro North Mall was the second largest in our metro. Now only Macy's remains at the shopping center on Barry Road and 169 Highway. The plan? To demolish the shopping center and replace it with a more compact, shoppable, one-story indoor mall. Now, firstly, why did Metro North decline? Was it the fact that if you live north of the river, you could go to Zona Rosa, which is really not that far away?
I think it really, Zona Rosa came along with quite a ambitious plan. This outdoor shopping, we're going to create the Plaza of the Northland. It proved to be a huge hit, and those big indoor malls were struggling anyway. We just, you know, Metcalf South is gone, Blue Ridge Mall is gone, and this was kind of the final kick for Metro North. Now they're coming back with a revamped, smaller. You know, the Northland population is growing. It's one of the fastest growing areas in the metro. So maybe a smaller, smarter shopping center will be able to compete just to the folks who live within a closer distance of it.
Now, this is going to be an indoor mall, but at a time when I thought people were now saying, these retail gurus, that concept wasn't working. That's why you're seeing sort of Ward Parkway becoming an outdoor type of mall where you just go basically from the car parking lot straight to the door of the store, Stacey Cameron.
Well, that's right. And you see one of the representatives of the ownership group of the mall say, well, this is going to be different because people want a controlled environment for their shopping. Well, we have that. It's called sitting at home on the internet and shopping from our couch. I think the one thing that they did get right, though, is saying it needs to be more than a mall. It needs to have some type of entertainment aspect. And I think that's what's been sort of attractive to Zona Rosa. You can get out, you can see people, there's eating, there had been a movie theater and a comedy club there. They're going to have to find, other than just a second and a third anchor tenant up there, they are going to have to find some type of entertainment value, something more than just restaurants, something more than just a theater to draw people up there, because you do have Zona Rosa there. So I think they've got a long way to go. We've seen that this development's been years in the making and it's gone really nowhere. So until they get those pieces in place, I don't know that this is a viable option.
Yeah, the trend of these indoor malls closing has been national and been going on for a while, and I think the key thing to get you to get dressed and get off of your computer and go out shopping is to make it an experience. And whether it's indoor or outdoor, that's what the Plaza, Zona Rosa, some of these other places all have in common, is there's an experience factor to it that makes it a pleasant thing to do rather than sit at home on your couch and shop on Amazon.
And I do think, though, the demographic trends up in the Northland, there is a much larger population, and the projections are it's only going to continue to grow. So there's probably room enough for another smaller, leaner indoor shopping center. It might be the kind of alternative, especially if they can get some unique tenants.
They're looking for things like Crate and Barrel, though, and Pottery Barns of the world.
Well, there is no Crate and Barrel in the Northland.
Right.
That is true. That is true.
We have to travel to Johnson County for
right,
those. And so if you live north of the river, then that is something
and
that's
there's
attractive,
some people
that you
with
get
money
that
up
demographic
there.
there.
Yes, they are.
And those kinds of businesses are being talked about for this new indoor mall, exactly to fill that void that we're talking about.
A week after announcing her resignation as the nation's health secretary, could Kathleen Sebelius be heading on to the campaign trail? The New York Times reports that Sebelius is considering a run for the U.S. Senate seat in Kansas, currently occupied by Pat Roberts. The Times says that at 77, Roberts, who is running for a 4th term, is considered vulnerable. Is there any validity to this report, or is this just wishful thinking, Steve Kraske?
No validity to it.
Oh, okay.
All wishful thinking. It's not going to happen, Nick. A whole bunch of reasons why it's not going to happen. She, through a spokesperson, just came out late yesterday afternoon and said she's not interested in doing this. You know, she's worn out from all these years of running this huge department and trying to implement this huge program. And then beyond that, Nick, politically speaking, Obamacare, trying to sell that in Kansas is like trying to sell a drought to farmers. And no one is interested
Where was this report
this.
coming from then, Garrett?
Well, and I think it's coming from Democratic major donors, Democratic power players, and I actually think it speaks poorly for Chad Taylor. I think if there's a loser out of all of this,
who is the Shawnee County
He's
District
the-
Attorney,
he is-
which is based in Topeka, who
That's
is
right.
the Democratic candidate.
He was
against Pat
supposed to be
Roberts.
the semi-big name candidate that Democrats could rally around in this case. And if you've got Democratic donors or Democratic sources grousing to the New York Times that they don't think they have a person running that can win, that suggests that, you know, that he's maybe not getting the money, not getting the financial support and the push from some of those big names. If they're still seeking another candidate, that reflects poorly on the overall attitude towards his candidacy.
Stacey.
Notice this report came out of the New York Times and not out of the Star or the Topeka Journal. This is D.C. politicians talking to national contributors, political donors who don't know Kansas politics. Chad Taylor has a legitimate shot if Milton Wolf, the Tea Party challenger, defeats Senator Roberts. Sebelius could never beat Taylor, but Taylor could have a legitimate shot. So the people in D.C. that have the access journalism that just want to write something that gets hits are the ones who wrote this. This never sold in Kansas.
Talking about Milt Wolf, then he is the Tea Party favorite who is running against Pat Roberts for the Republican primary.
That's right.
Is he still viewed as a long shot against Roberts?
Very much of a long shot, Nick. I can't find an issue to really turn this race on outside of the fact that Pat Roberts hasn't lived in Kansas for a long time.
All right. The Power and Light District has been facing ongoing financial woes. Is the entertainment venue about to get a big boost as the Cordish Company is scheduled to break ground on a 25-story apartment tower at 13th and Walnut? That's 315 upscale apartments with all those new residents with money to burn. The groundbreaking was supposed to be this week, but was called off at the very last moment due to terrible weather. We've heard of financial problems in the Power and Light District and its inability to make debt payments, which means the city is spending millions of dollars subsidizing the entertainment district. Does having hundreds of new apartment dwellers coming online with money to burn fix that problem?
Well, it doesn't
Kevin, come
fix
on.
it, but it helps reduce it, hopefully.
Okay.
And it's not just, you know, Nick, there's more. It's kind of exciting what's going on right now. I mean, this tower's been talked about now for 2 years. But just last week, we had a report about a Indianapolis developer who has 3 different developments he wants to do downtown that would add another 600 units. Yesterday, the same agency that approved this project I told you about on the streetcar route also approved a deal in the West Bottoms for another couple of hundred units. There is actually at least 1,000, 1,500 apartments in the pipeline right now downtown, besides the Cordish Tower. So there's definitely some momentum happening. More people shopping, more people going out for cocktails. It'll help. This deal financially is still a real, you know, it's going to be a long ways before they can heal that $12 million gap. But this will be a positive, and it'll also just show that the Cosentino's in particular was an important investment. The grocery store that's part of the Power and Light District, huge aspect in why people like living downtown now.
Now, you were reporting on Miley Cyrus cancelling her concert this week at Sprint Center,
I
which
do the
is
heavy
close to
lifting.
Power and Light
High point
District.
of my journalistic career. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Bringing that up,
But, you know, obviously they need other people coming down there to actually help pay the bills at the Power and Light
Right, not
District.
a lot of folks for those upset 13 and 14-year-olds. Not a lot of places for them to go. But yeah, having anybody else living down there had to help pay those 1 cent sales tax if it goes through will make a difference. Now, it's too rich for my blood to go live down there. But I will say, arguing over the details of how we might finance these projects when multiple developers do want to build is a much better position to be in than still trying to figure out how to lure these people here in the first place.
One last little fun thing. The downtown charter school yesterday, which
the Crossroads Academy.
Crossroads Academy got the green light from the city council to double its size. Everybody said, let's get a school downtown. Now we've got a thriving charter school that's doing very well, and they're going to have almost 300 kids enrolled next fall.
Stacey.
But I question the Cordish development. The best thing about it is that it's going to close the Jones Pool for a summer, which for those of us who live downtown, that's good news. But really, the cost, $950 to $1,800 a month for that in the type of new development. Most of the attractive types of apartments and lofts are the industrial type lofts that are in the River Market and other areas around. I question who's going to move into that building and pay that type of rent. When you're talking $950 to $1,800 a month, you're talking Boston and New York style rent. So who are the people that are going to come in and inhabit those types of apartments? I just balk and question at that when you talk about the ones going into the River Market and or down in the West Bottoms and others. Those are rehab ones that have far more personality than a glass building.
Okay, Kevin.
But that gets, I mean, there is a shortage of new places because when you do historic rehab projects, you can't have the balconies, you can't have the exterior spaces. And people say we do need that alternative as well, the newer buildings.
I just still question who are the people that are going to come in and live in these, having lived
people
downtown.
Who make more than journalists.
Well, that's true. That's for sure.
Alrighty. Whatever happened to efforts to fix the state school transfer law and that contentious state plan to fix unaccredited districts? Join me and the KCPT crew Monday night at 6 at the Plaza Library for Make or Break Decision Time for Kansas City Schools as we bring together every major player in Kansas City and Missouri education to connect the dots. And you are invited. It is Make or Break Decision Time for Schools. We'll be taping Monday at 6 at the Plaza Library for later broadcast. You can register at kcpt.org. And that is it for this week's program. Our thanks to our news reviewers from the Kansas City Star, Kevin Collison, and from 41 Action News, Garrett Hake. Keeping you up to date weekday mornings at 11 on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske, and investigative reporter Stacey Cameron. From another perspective on the Metro's news, watch Ruckus Sunday morning at 11:30. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.